Good morning, welcome to TechMag TV. I am your host, Ross Moyo. I am joined with the Acting Director of Operations for Traffic Safety Council of Zimbabwe, Mr. Ernest Muchena. Mr. Muchena, welcome.
Thank you, good morning.
Yes, the Traffic Safety Council of Zimbabwe is mandated by the Council Act, according to the regulations of the law of Zimbabwe, to be able to promote road safety awareness. Recently, we just came from Easter. There was a lot of road carnage, and from my understanding, compared to last year, we had about 26 deaths during this Easter, in comparison to about 8 deaths last year during the same time. We want you to explain to us, first and foremost, your mandate as the Traffic Safety Council of Zimbabwe.
Thank you. The Traffic Safety Council of Zimbabwe is a parastatal that came into being in the year 2000 through the Traffic Safety Council Act, Chapter 18.17. Its predecessor is the Zimbabwe Traffic Safety Board, which was a department under the Ministry of Transport. So the Act is where we derive our mandate. Our functions, we are mandated by the Act to promote road safety. We are the ones who publish the highway code. We are the ones who set standards for license acquisition, be it the provisional driver's license or the certificate of competence. We also control and regulate operations of driving schools, and we also advise the Minister of Transport on matters related to road safety.
How then do you promote road safety with what you are saying?
We carry out a number of strategic activities in order to promote road safety. We find ways of interacting with members of the public, for instance. We also have what we call road safety education in schools. We have road safety awareness campaigns. We interact with other stakeholder organizations, the Zimbabwe Public Peace, the Vehicle Inspection Department. We also interact with local authorities. We also have set up quite a number of inter-stakeholder committees where we interact with those in trying to find ways of promoting road safety in Zimbabwe. We also affiliate with international associations. So we carry out a lot of things. That's when maybe you see us sending messages, broadcasting messages. We interact with the providers such as Econet, such as Net1 and Telecel, where we broadcast messages, trying to disseminate information on road safety, since it is our mandate.
Recently, there's been a lot of, kombi taxi battles that we see on the road. You see the police chasing away the drivers, sometimes damaging the vehicles, and sometimes the cases end up in the courts. And you have a mandate as the Traffic Safety Council of Zimbabwe to regulate the safety. Are you also not mandated to somehow advise the police and also the very same transport operators?
Okay, actually what happens is if you want to operate a business in transportation, be there goods or passengers in Zimbabwe, you have to adhere to the provisions of the Road Motor Transportation Act. The Road Motor Transportation Act clearly stipulates that whoever wants to operate a transport in a business must have an operator's license. So you apply for an operator's license, you also submit details about the vehicles that you want to use, you also submit details about the drivers that are going to drive those vehicles. And when you have got all those things, then you are given an authority to operate. So that's the starting point. Whoever wants to get into public transportation in usage of public service vehicles has to adhere to those provisions. Then in addition to that, you find that there are rules, like we have Statutory Instrument 168 of 2006, which now has public service vehicle driver regulations. And each driver that you employ should be able to adhere to those. They should have 5 years prior driving experience. They should also have a defensive driver certificate issued by us as Traffic Safety Council as well. You should have a medical certificate. Then all those things you have to adhere to. So you find those people you find getting into running petrols with the police are the ones who do not adhere to those regulations. Firstly, they may not have an operator's license. Then that person is operating illegally, what people now call the notorious mushikashikaz. Or in this current scenario, government gave a directive that all those who want to be in public transportation, they should register with the national transporter, which is ZUPCO, which is a parastatal. So you choose. If you want to stop business, you stop. If you want to join, then you join ZUPCO and you adhere to those regulations. Then we ensure that the police will also check on the drivers, they also check on the vehicles. But those people who are not adhering to those issues are the ones that you see having running battles with the police. Then we also have the smaller cars. The smaller cars, they cannot be used in transportation of passengers for long distances or many passengers. Those are the ones that you can register as a taxi which has got a radius of 40 kilometers from that particular city. If you register a small taxi in Harare, it has got a 40 kilometer radius, it cannot go further than 40 kilometers. That's the taxi that you can hire from the CBD and go to Glenview, go to Highfield, go to Glenview, and they're allowed to carry only 3 passengers. But some people, they choose not to do that, and then they take their vehicles and then they carry 7, 8 passengers. They start doing that business illegally, and they end up being mushikashikaz. So each time they see anyone who is enforcing the law, they do suicidal activities. Those are the people you see driving on pavements. Those are the people you see running away from the police. But it is also the duty of us as citizens to know that this is illegal transport and you shun it. Then they don't have any business, and then we are okay.
It's interesting to know that you brought up the issue concerning the ZUPCO kombiz, because government gave a directive that every kombi, let's put it in quotes, the mushikashikaz or these taxis should join ZUPCO. And you as the Traffic Safety Council of Zimbabwe, you are part of that government because you are under the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructural Development. So it means that you are part of the leadership that is saying that all kombis must be banned. And now, having banned these kombis, if you look around, the challenges are now enormous. You've got people queuing until midnight trying to get home. You've got people waking up at 4 a.m. trying to go to work, and they queue for hours so that they can be able to get a ride to work. Now, the challenges have now become cumbersome, and with all these battles, do you see them going away? And what is your take as the Traffic Safety Council of Zimbabwe on that?
We expect all law-abiding citizens to abide with the directives on transportation of people in the country with the laws of the land. So those who have got their vehicles with a certificate of fitness and their drivers properly trained, they have no reason for not joining public transportation systems that have been designed by government. But you find those that are not willing to go, maybe the driver is underage, maybe the vehicle doesn't have windows, maybe the vehicle is not properly registered, and that poses danger. And you find that in places where there are these mushikashikaz, it ends up being a competition between a registered operator and a non-registered operator. And then you find it's very difficult now to allocate vehicles to that particular area when people are using illegally used vehicles. But what I may want to highlight as the Traffic Safety Council is members of the public who use unregistered vehicles. One, you risk losing life or limb because you are being driven by an an unlicensed or inexperienced driver, whatever the case may be. 2, you are in an unroadworthy vehicle, and there are chances that a mechanical fault may develop unless you are in a vehicle that has been inspected by the vehicle inspection department and certified to be on the road. Then the third and most critical issue is those vehicles, they are not insured. They don't have what we call passenger liability insurance. The law prescribes that if you want to operate a transportation business carrying passengers, you must have a passenger liability insurance where there is compensation in the event that you have been injured, you have been hospitalized, or even in the event of death, there's what we call a death benefit, which is derived from the passenger liability insurance. So getting into those vehicles that are not registered is not only risky, but you can have disastrous consequences in the end. So it is the duty of every law-abiding citizen to ensure that you get into something that is safe. You cannot take risks and end up suffering. We have cases of people who approach the Traffic Safety Council seeking assistance, but the moment we realize that the transporter has no passenger liability insurance, it becomes a civil case. Then when it becomes a civil case, you have got to engage a lawyer in order to get compensation. And you are likely not to get any compensation to somebody who owns an unroadworthy vehicle. Where will they get that compensation? So it is the duty of everyone to ensure that you use proper public transport that has been registered by government. If there are any shortcomings, if you look at the moment, there are a lot of buses that are coming in, mass transportation is coming in, and you find that bigger buses are able to carry more people. So we await that by using proper, and then the problem is clearly pronounced and it is solved by responsible authorities.
You know, the volume of traffic in Africa is far below compared to developed nations. Yet there is plenty of road carnage, particularly in Zimbabwe. Are you aware that 5 people die every day in Zimbabwe due to road carnage, and an average of 38 per day are injured in Zimbabwe, whilst overall in Africa you have about 650 people that are dying daily because of road accidents. Yet, when compared to other developed nations, they are far lesser numbers. How are you working with the ZRP in alleviating this, particularly for this country?
Fine, we have brought in statistics mainly that even come from our offices that 5 people died every day on our roads in Zimbabwe. We have got the human error in Zimbabwe, in the region, in the continent, and world over as being the major cause of road traffic accidents. I'll give an example of speeding. Some people travel at speeds that are too fast for the conditions, and those people are involved in accidents. Some people also, the overtaking error, it's more pronounced. I was moving around during the Easter holidays, doing what we call highway patrols, and I noticed that some people, they overtake in front of oncoming traffic. And if you do not take avoiding action, that would be an accident that is caused by somebody who is driving in a hurry. So human error is the major problem that we have in our country as a major cause of road traffic accidents. You find some people lack the requisite defensive driving skills. In our country, in Zimbabwe, defensive driving is a course that teaches one to prevent accidents, but it's only compulsory for the public service vehicle drivers, whether they carry goods or passengers. So it's one of the courses that if taken, it can also reduce the number of accidents, because it will teach you to prevent accidents in spite of the incorrect actions of others. You will find some people are involved in that, and then you ask them, but you could have prevented this accident. I know these kombi drivers, they stop suddenly. But in defensive driving, we are teaching you to have a foresight to anticipate the actions of every driver. But recently, I think yesterday, there was an accident involving a school child in National and East, I think, Utoko area. Last week, at a certain school, I think that's the 4th incident where a child was killed, because you are approaching an area where there's a school. Either there are signs showing you that there's a school, you can even use your eyesight to see that there's a school. And if you don't adjust your speed, you are likely to run over a grade 1 child, an ECD child, mainly because you did not adjust to the condition. So most of the accidents are caused by human error.
Well, it's interesting as well that you mentioned about defensive driving. My understanding is that the nation is losing about 3% of its gross domestic product as a result of the carnage on our roads. Each time you see the government saying that they are building roads, the roads that are being built are a result of the carnage that has dilapidated our system, our infrastructure. So if we are losing 3% of our gross domestic product, 3%, surely this is unacceptable. And as the Traffic Safety Council of Zimbabwe, you mentioned about defensive driving. I want to go back there. I want you to explore further. Why are you saying that is it available for everyone, or it is only being taken by a certain clique? And how can you be able to push it forward so that it can be able to positively affect?
Okay, yeah, that figure is too high a figure, 3% of the GDP. And as Traffic Safety Council, it's part of our mandate to ensure that we reduce that to a decimal, because it's too much for a country to lose 3% of its GDP. So you find defensive driving at the moment, it's available for everyone, but it's compulsory for those that drive that drive public service vehicles only. I will give an example of why I would say, from a road safety practitioner's point of view, why I would say it helps to reduce. I'll give one practical example. The two-car crash, where two cars collide, is the most common type of road accident world over, where two cars collide. And in defensive driving, we open the petals by informing you that there are only 6 positions or 6 ways that those two cars can clash. So we go one by one until we complete those 6. How do they collide? What can you do to prevent that type of accident? And then we come up with solutions. In the course we teach, we have practical demonstrations through use of videos. We also have practical discussions. We talk to the drivers who have encountered similar accidents. So in that way, our DDC graduate should be able to prevent the two-car crash. Then we move on even to the mystery crash, which is also very common. We talk about that one. We also talk about collision with other types of road users. How do you avoid a collision with animals? As you know, Zimbabwe is a cattle country. We come across domestic animals on our roads. We also come across wild animals on our roads. But how do you adjust? Then in the event that the animal is on the road, how do you react as a driver? And then in that way, you learn to prevent accidents. So we are at the moment working with the Zimbabwe Public Police to enforce the provisions of SI 168 of 2006, which makes it mandatory for each and every driver to have a valid defensive driving certificate. But as an organization also, we are also trying to explore the idea of having the defensive driving course compulsory for drivers. Maybe for the new driver who comes in, obtaining those defensive driving skills, and then in that way trying to prevent road traffic accidents. But meanwhile, the instructors that work in driving schools, it's a requirement that they must have a defensive driver certificate and those skills to impart to the learner. Then the examiner, the VID examiner, it's also a requirement that they also go through the defensive driving course so that they will be able to check on those skills before the issuance of a driver's license. So in that way, if you get the skills from the school, and if they are tested by the examiner, and then if that driver gets the certificate, then we are done. We will have a crop of drivers who drive defensive.
There is a United Nations Decade of Action for Road Safety. United Nations Decade of Action for Road Safety. And if I remember very well, as the Traffic Safety Council of Zimbabwe, you also had a vision within that to try and reduce road carnage by 50% by a certain period of time. And my question is, why would you say you want to reduce by 50%? It's not possible to reduce by 100%.
Well, maybe what I would say is it's not practically possible to reduce accidents by 100%. But the moment you reverse into the gate at your house by mistake, we call that an accident. In Harare, if somebody, right now, if I start reversing after this interview outside the parking bay, if I make a mistake, it becomes an accident. Actually, when the first car was invented, 6 hours later, there was an accident. I think it killed a person in London. So you find accidents are inevitable, but we want to reduce them. So the United Nations set a realistic target of 50%. And the decade of action ran from 2011 to 2020, the first decade of action. Then, world over, the countries met again in Sweden, and we had to go back to the drawing board to see what went wrong, how are we lagging behind as a world. And you find that some are lagging behind, some are in between, some are far ahead of others. I will give an example in our country. We already have helmet laws. Some countries do not have even the helmet laws. So if somebody is involved in an accident whilst not wearing a helmet, then that person is likely to get injuries or death. But we already have. Then we have seatbelt laws, but which we want also to improve our seatbelt laws. Some don't have institutions that work towards the reduction of road accidents. So we went back to Sweden and agreed that let's go into another decade of action, 2021 to 2030, where we are trying to improve. We've got what we call the African Road Safety Charter. It's a charter which needs to be ratified by all African countries. If you look at it again as a region, as the SADC, we came up with SADC signage. We are working towards use of uniform signage, non-verbal, mostly pictorial road signs. You find a driver who has left Zimbabwe this morning, maybe by the end of the day, that person will be driving in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So as a region, we adopted SADC signage, Zimbabwe being a member, and in our country, we adopted them Actually, we set up a highway code upgrading committee in 2013, which I chaired, and then in 2016, we published an upgraded version of the highway code, which has got uniform signs, so that a driver who comes from a non-English speaking country, maybe someone who doesn't speak English coming from Mozambique, when they come and drive past Zimbabwe, they are going to come across a giveaway sign, and maybe they won't be able to read or understand what giveaway means. The same way I wouldn't know, I wouldn't read the word giveaway in Portuguese. So we have got, for example, I'll just give an example of the giveaway sign. It's called a yield sign. It's an inverted equilateral triangle, and it's there to show you that you give precedence to traffic on the roadway that is joining with your roadway. And any driver, whether English speaking, Portuguese speaking, French speaking, I'm just looking at the languages that are spoken in the SADC region, they will be able to follow those rules. It's a way of reducing road accidents by making people interpret similar road signs, so that when you drive in another country, you follow exactly the same rules. So we're working towards that in the second decade of action. But to come 31 December 2025, Zimbabwe will be completely using the SADC sign, which you are already seeing on new projects. The Plum Tree, Bulawayo, Harare, Mutare project, they are using SADC signs. Even the Harare Betu Bridge is under construction, they are using SADC signs. And we've got local authorities, City of Harare, they've adopted them. Murewa Road District Council, we've seen those, almost all the replacements that are being done in terms of signage. We are encouraging them to use SADC signs. And in that way, we hope that will also reduce the carnage on our roads. But 50% is a practical, is a reasonably practical figure that we can work on. But maybe the other problem that we have is, when we say 50%, we are talking of ratios, we are not talking of numerical figures. If you say 2,000 people died this year, next year 2,500 people died, then you say it's an increase. Yes, numerically it's an increase, but we as experts, we try to look at the vehicle population. Maybe there was an increase in vehicle population, or even if it remains at 2,000, you may say nothing happened, but from a statistician point of view, I have to find out whether maybe it's the number of vehicles that went down. I'll give an example of last Easter. Last Easter, only 7 people died on Zimbabwe roads. This Easter, 26. So I cannot say that was an achievement in 2020 because the country was in a total lockdown. There wasn't any movement of vehicles. So it's like those figures, they don't really mean it was a decrease from 2019. What they only means is we have analyzed the environment that time. It was a total lockdown, only essential services vehicles were moving, there was no intercity travel, there was not even members of the public going to the villages for what they usually go, there were no church crusades and all that. So it resulted in a numerical figure. But we want to look at things proportionate. How many accidents happen per 100,000 vehicles? How many have happened in this particular area? By looking at the vehicle population, by even looking at the geographical population, how many people are in the country at that particular time?
Well, road safety is of paramount importance. I remember we discussed about the 3% gross domestic product that is costing the nation as a result of the road carnage. But it does not only place a heavy burden on the economy alone, but also on households. If I have a family and I lose a brother in a road accident, if my brother was the breadwinner in the family, it means that the burden has been transferred from the economy to that particular household. Now imagine how many accidents that we have daily and how many households are being affected by these accidents. Coming back again to the issue of defensive driving, perhaps there are more immense benefits from defensive driving that you may elaborate for us.
Yes, you find that the burden of road traffic accidents becomes more pronounced when someone is directly involved. When people lose a breadwinner, we attend a funeral and we leave them, but the problem starts there, just because of road traffic death, or even road traffic injuries, where a breadwinner loses life or limb. And also more pronounced at national level when somebody, a school child, is killed. Somebody, the future leader, is killed through road traffic accidents, or even a breadwinner being incapacitated just because they have been involved in road traffic accidents. So we are saying everyone should be responsible enough to drive well. One, we've got problems of people who drive without a driver's license. That's not only criminal, but it's actually doing injustice to the whole nation when somebody just goes onto the road, starts driving a car without even learning the road rules. And this creates a big problem to the road traffic management system. But we, as road safety authorities and the police, we work also hand in hand to try to weed out such individuals who may be coming in and driving on our roads. Then we also have issues of drunken driving. When one attends the defensive driving course, we try to give them a scenario to explain how alcohol impairs their ability to drive. And we don't also look at one drug called alcohol, because alcohol we also refer to it as a drug. But we also look at other drugs such as barbiturates, amphetamines, and all that. And even such taking of drugs such as medicinal drugs that are being abused, like bronchia and all that. So we explain and discuss with the students on the dangers of use of drugs in them being a contributory factor to road traffic collisions. So it's like getting deep into the details. It's what we call a behavior-based induction, where we want to change the behavior of a particular person by going through that course. But it is also the duty of society to assist in changing the behavior. We have engaged the community leaders, such as chiefs and headmen in rural areas, where they also try to impart accident prevention skills and methods to their subjects. They also discuss with them when they come for family functions, when they're attending public gatherings, when they're attending commemorations. We have tried to make them champions in their society so that they can be able to say, this is wrong, this is not acceptable in my area. I know of a chief, I think in Nyanga, he doesn't tolerate even drivers who speed past his homestead in his area. If it's reported, he interjects. He doesn't tolerate drivers who do not meet even statutory requirements. When we had meetings there in Nyanga, I was actually saying, what are the requirements? And if there is any driver who doesn't have those requirements, they don't want them in the area. So this fight against road carnage, it's not a one-man battle, it's not a one organization battle. It's something that you can even do in the home. Don't allow your child to drive without a driver's license. Encourage your child or take your child for defensive driving. In that way, we'll fight the carnage on our roads.
It appears defensive driving perhaps does help in this fight. What are the charges of this defensive driving?
Of late, the defensive driving course that was gazetted, the price that was gazetted is 3,040 RTGs. But then that being a statutory charge, you find it's a charge that is gazetted, and then we implement that. So we charge a mere 3,040 ZWL dollars, and in that course you are given a workbook, you are also given a copy of the highway code, then you are offered the tuition. We make it mandatory for us and even our agencies to ensure that every DTC graduate has got a copy of the highway code. In the upgraded version of the highway code, we have got the book itself, and it incorporates SADC signs. Then we also have the old signs, the existing signs that we are using. We've got a pamphlet to that effect. Then we've got 2 additional ones, which has got a whole lot of the SADC signs that we are going to eventually adopt, but that you come across if you drive in countries like South Africa. If you go to Botswana, you find you come across, even if you go to the United Kingdom, they are almost more or less uniform. We are calling them SADC signs because we chose those that we want. But if you go to the United Kingdom, you also find the same type of signs. Even if you go to other African countries, you find the same type of sign. So that highway code is a very important tool in the fight against the road carnage. And also the upgraded version of the highway code, it's not only for the driver, it is a code for all road users. We have got a section for cyclists. So I would urge a cyclist to also obtain a copy of the highway code. On its own, it goes for 200 RTGs. There is a section for those who use animal-drawn vehicles, because we also have accidents involving animal-drawn vehicles. And we also have laws governing animal-drawn vehicles. Like at the moment, if you look at SR 308, they are not allowed to travel at night. So that information, we are trying to bring it even to the rural areas, to the communities that we are not allowed to use an animal-drawn vehicle at night. And the period that we refer to night in Zimbabwe is 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. So that's the information that we give, because of their speed and also because of limited visibility, we don't expect them to be on the roads. Then we also have a section for pedestrians. Pedestrians play a very critical role in the road traffic system, and they are also victims of road traffic accidents. So we have that section for pedestrians. Then we also even have a section for passengers. When you are in a car, what are you expected to do? Must fasten your seatbelts, make sure you don't throw things out of the windows, which can also be a recipe for accident. So the upgraded version of the highway code is a very key component, even in this second decade of action for road safety. It's something that we are trying to disseminate throughout. Then we've got a reduced version. It's called the highway code for children. Actually, we've got a smaller version, a highway code for children. It's called a Children's Highway Guide. In that guide, we've tried to simplify a situation where a student is walking to school, a student is a passenger, they are playing and all that, so that they also understand the road rules in a simplified version. In addition to that, that's when I said we also have road safety education in schools. We are trying to catch them young so that they become responsible road users in this fight against the road carnage.
So it is safe to say that you are also mandated in making sure that every driving school follows a certain regulation. It is your mandate for any future license holder, driving license holder, or for anyone with a driving license today to have gone through what you basically tell every driving school. And lately, driving schools have been found wanting. We hear of, monies being paid and people getting their driving licenses without even undergoing the driving test itself. We've been hearing all of these stories ever since we were kids growing up. And I do not know, as the Traffic Safety Council of Zimbabwe, can you help us understand your role with driving schools?
Thank you. Maybe let me just, for the benefit of our viewers, let's just talk about the license acquisition process. In order to obtain a driver's license in Zimbabwe, it must have a minimum of 16 years. So the moment one turns 16, they can obtain a class 4 driver's license. They will be able to drive light motor vehicles. But if you are 18 and above, you can also straight obtain a class 2 driver's license, which means you'll be able to drive heavy motor vehicles. But the process is very simple. You purchase a highway code, read through the rules. You can approach any driving school and say you want oral tuition, and it must be offered by a registered instructor. It must not be offered by anyone. Then alternatively, you can approach the Traffic Safety Council. We've got a scheme where we are going into schools, into churches, into organizations, and offer free tuition. They just buy the highway code. We go through the highway code with them for a period of about 8 hours, and then we invite the vehicle inspection department for the test. So if we are doing it via an institution like us, we call the VID and they can come and test you in the comfort of your organization. But if you are doing it through a driving school, you go, you learn, then you approach any vehicle inspection department. You write an examination. It's a 25 multiple choice test that you have to score 88% and above. When you have scored that, you are issued with a provisional driver's license. Then armed with your provisional driver's license, you have to purchase what we call the Green Book. That's the driving curriculum. It has got 15 work plans. It teaches you about the controls. It teaches you about how to turn, how to reverse, how to drive in the city in those 15 work plans. So you can read about driving before you even go into a driving school, before you even enter a car. You read through the curriculum. Then you take your curriculum to the driving school, register and go through lessons. ideally we believe that a full course is about 30 lessons. Some people, depending on how fast they are, they do less than 30. Some they do more than 30. Then when you've gone through those lessons, it's not you to say I'm ready to go. The instructor is trained in such a way that he or she assesses your competencies, then says you are good to go. Then you approach the vehicle inspection department and you do what we call a yard test, where you have to demonstrate that you can reverse in and out of drums, where you have to do parallel parking, where you have to do a 3-point turn, and where you have to do an uphill start. When you have done that, then you go into the city and you do city driving. So we use a demerit system whereby you lose points the moment you don't do things properly. But there are some things that are immediate. If you go through a stop sign, if you go through a red light, if you run through a pedestrian crossing, you automatically fail. But if you succeed and you have lost a limited number of points, then you are issued with the license. But if you have accumulated many points, you are asked to go and polish. You are even given the marking sheet, and you know these are the areas that are lacking, and then you get tested again until you obtain. So it's a straightforward way of obtaining a driver's license, and that is what should be followed. Because driving is a matter of life and death. If you obtain through scandalous means, then you are likely to lose life or cause death on our roads, with even penalties that you may not even like.
You know, the publicity of your awareness campaigns leaves a lot to be desired sometimes. It appears that only during festivities like Christmas do we see, education on road traffic laws. Yet every day in Harare, when I'm coming from my neighborhood, I see touts hanging at the back of a kombi, at the back, and endangering the lives of the kombi driver, the pedestrians that are walking, and the commuters that are in the taxis. This is a daily occurrence. I have not seen the Traffic Safety Council of Zimbabwe educating the touts or anyone concerning what these touts are doing. Is your act as the Traffic Safety Council of Zimbabwe, is it the one that is edging on these touts? Because this is a daily occurrence, which I see.
Yeah, maybe when you see us by the roadside, that's when you say our campaigns have started. Obviously, during public holidays, our campaigns are more pronounced. But before then, like I wouldn't tell you that we've got a decongestion program right now, whereby the Zimbabwe Public and Traffic Safety Council, they're moving around with loud yellers and informing people. But if you are here maybe in the studio, you wouldn't know about it. But there are a lot of things. We've got weekly programs, we have radio programs. We even accept invitations, like here, I'm here in the studio. I take time to come and educate people. So we grab every opportunity, we attend to every inquiry from the media, we broadcast SMS messages. Every morning, there's no one morning that passes without our members going to organizations and giving morning safety talks, especially in the mining fraternity and the banking fraternity. They invite us, we go there, but if we do that at 7 in the morning up to 7:30 talking to the employees about good driving, you wouldn't then maybe know. But when it becomes more pronounced, definitely when come Independence, come Easter, come festive period, that's when you find most of us now, most of our visibility becoming more pronounced. But our education is going on a daily basis. If we were not interested in disseminating information, maybe I wouldn't be in this studio, but doing something else. But we grab the opportunity to talk to people, we grab the opportunity to disseminate information, we go to public gatherings, we go to church gatherings where we address members of a particular church. If they invite us, we inform them that we are coming, we ask for a slot, even 5-10 minutes, and we talk to those people, thousands and thousands of people. Last year, I think we were the reach of about 12 million, because what we do is like, with this, we ask for a viewership, we go on television, we've got a weekly program that we are running with the Zimbabwe Republic at the moment, where we are also disseminating information on road safety.
Well, maybe we may want to understand the effect of the third-party insurance as Traffic Safety Council of Zimbabwe. How are you involved with that?
Well, if you bring the issue of insurance, that's when I was talking about passenger liability insurance. But there's what we call third-party insurance. Every motor vehicle that is driven on Zimbabwean roads must obtain a third-party vehicle insurance. The insurer and the insured are the two parties. Then the third party is whoever is involved in an accident, whether it's a cyclist, the motorcyclist, it's a pedestrian, it's another car. That's when the third party insurance comes into play. So the Road Traffic Act, Chapter 13.11, makes it mandatory for every road user, every car owner, to ensure that the vehicle that you are driving on Zimbabwean roads has got a third party insurance cover, which then is used to compensate in the event of a road traffic accident involving somebody's car, involving somebody. That's when that insurance comes into play. Then maybe if there are any shortfalls, that's when you also come in. But it's a requirement that every vehicle must be having a third-party insurance. So it's a warning out there to those people who drive unregistered vehicles that they do not have that basic form of insurance. And it can also be very costly to them should they be involved in an accident. And also should there be someone coming to claim directly from them.
You did mention about the SADC signs. Since you are publishing the highway code, you may want to really summarize that for us. The highway code with the advent of the SADC coming together.
Yeah, SADC signs, as I have said before, they are more pictorial than use of words. They are there to be understood by any driver who is coming from any other part of the region or the world, driving on our roads and following the rules uniformly. So we are urging everybody who has got a driver's license to make sure that they get that copy. Because come 2025, you must follow SADC rules to the book. And if you do not follow those rules, then you may be tricked into an accident, or you may also be fined and risk losing your driver's license, either in this state or in any other state. But it's a gigantic step towards reducing the road carnage, not only in Zimbabwe, but in the region, but in the continent and world over, so that we achieve the goals of the Decade of Action for road safety. The number of people that have been killed on our roads, on the world's roads, is too much. One death is one death too many.
About your traffic training centers, as we wind down, we are very much aware that just last Easter, there were 178 road accidents compared to 231 this last Easter. And 22 were injured last Easter, whilst 149 were injured during this Easter. You certainly had a campaign last Easter. I do not know whether there was another campaign that was more successful than the other, since you mentioned that we were in lockdown, but the accidents were actually a number, even though they were lesser compared to the ones that we experienced this year. And we are in the month of April. In 8 days, 10 days, 8, 9 days, it will be Independence. And it's another holiday. What plans have you put in place to safeguard human life, to safeguard our roads, our infrastructure, so that the burden will not be heavy, not just for the government, which lost 3% of its GDP just fixing roads, just because somebody did not want to do it right the first time. What plans do you have?
Yeah, you find that historically, if you have a public holiday like this coming Independence holiday, people travel to the villages, people travel to visit friends and relatives, people also travel to tourist attractions. So we anticipate a heavy flow of traffic on our roads. There's definitely going to be increased traffic. So what we have done is we have identified the country's black spots where accidents happen, and we are deploying 17 teams on those particular highways, whereby they will be talking to motorists, telling them about the dangers on that particular road. Because somebody may be driving to Victoria Falls for the first time and they don't know about the area code in Susa, they don't know about Wange, they don't know about the dangers associated with Matebele and North. So when we deploy those teams, we expect them to disseminate first-hand information on that particular road. Then we also anticipate that if there is an accident on a section of the road, a driver who is better equipped with that knowledge will be able to know. So we will be relaying information using radio communication systems and mobile networks to inform road users, to inform the people at the checkpoint, to tell whoever is on the road that there is this mishap on the road, that there is a failed fire on this particular road, there are cattle on this particular road, so that they approach with caution. So we are going to deploy combined ZRP traffic safety council teams on our roads for independent, and we are using the period from the 16th, Friday the 16th, up to Monday the 19th. You will see our officers will be on the road. We have also included patrol cars, ZRP patrol cars, who will also be patrolling the highways and trying to assess the road safety situation on that road, so that we have a safe and accident-free Independence holiday.
Well, that brings us to the end of this interview with the Acting Director of Operations for the Traffic Safety Council of Zimbabwe, Mr. Ernest Muchena. We thank you for joining us today, and we trust that as time goes on, people have learned and will continue to learn how to be safe on our roads.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting the Traffic Safety Council to this session.
We hope you join us again on TechMag TV. Thank you.